Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Here's the headline. China's military seeks to exploit U.S. troops and veterans, warns a general. So a general is warning all of us that China is looking to exploit us. So let's dive into it a little bit here. Hit the thumbs up for me, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. It helps the channel. If you're not a member, consider joining. It helps the channel immensely, and it helps me to find you in the comments. All right, so let's jump into it. So a memo obtained by the Washington Post says Beijing is working to enhance its armed forces by targeting Americans with specialized skills and training. So General Brown, who appears to be Air Force General, I think is the one that's warning this. So let's dive into it here. So China's military is conducting a sophisticated exploitation campaign designed to fill gaps in its capabilities by targeting current and former U.S. service members and harvesting specialized knowledge they've gained, a top general warned in a message obtained by the Washington Post. The document was distributed to Air Force personnel on Friday. It marks the Pentagon's most direct attempt yet to call out and counter what U.S. officials characterized as an aggressive ploy by Beijing to leverage international firms that hire Americans to teach advanced military skills and tactics. General Charles Brown, who heads the Air Force and is President Biden's nominee to lead the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said in the message that foreign companies doing business with the Chinese government are targeting and recruiting U.S. and NATO-trained military talent across specialties and career fields. So that would be your MOS or your AFSC. By essentially training the trainer, many of those who accept contracts with these foreign companies are eroding our national security, putting the very safety of their fellow service members and the country at risk, Brown wrote, appealing to the recipient's sense of responsibility, even after leaving the armed forces to protect our national defense information. Officials declined to identify how many U.S. troops and veterans are thought to have been recruited by the Chinese, saying only that they have seen a worrisome rise in such activity. A spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in Washington did not deny Brown's assertions, saying in a statement that the Chinese government urges the United States to respect the normal business activities carried out by relevant companies and not to generalize and abuse the concept of national security and smear relevant companies. U.S. officials in recent years have been quick to accuse China, he added, affecting normal exchanges and cooperation between the two countries in a way that is not conducive to the healthy development of bilateral relations. A special agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, who, like some others interviewed for this report, spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss a sensitive national security matter, said attempts by China's military to exploit Americans have included marketing job openings to them that initially appear basically inconspicuous and approaching them directly at defense industry events. While China routinely targets American pilots, the special agent said veterans who've held a variety of other roles also are in demand. He cited former aerospace ground equipment maintainers and landing signals officers as examples, jobs that entail handling specialized equipment and guiding pilots and their aircraft to safety. The offer The offers come from a mix of privately owned companies and those backed by the Chinese government and are contracted by the Chinese government, officials said. The solicitations often include language that sounds customary in the defense sector, with references to consulting, advising, or training. A chief concern, the special agent said, is that some will rationalize that the work is legitimate even after they discover the connection to Chinese military. We want to make sure that people understand if it looks too good to be true, it probably is, he said, describing the effort as insidious. Officials are urging current and former military personnel to report if they have been recruited to train foreign militaries. Relations between Washington and Beijing have been strained for years, with the two powers divided on matters such as economic competition, climate change, and more recently, the war in Ukraine. U.S. security support for Taiwan, a self-governing democracy that China considers a breakaway province, and other recent steps by the Biden administration to expand military ties in the Pacific have deepened the tensions. The concerns also have prompted the creation of a House Select Committee on China. Its chairman, Representative Gallagher, said in a statement on Friday that U.S. personnel must understand they are targets for espionage and exploitation. Information that Chinese military officials may gain, Gallagher said, could someday be used against them. Congress needs to work with the Department of Defense to educate our service members and ensure they do not help facilitate their own destruction, said Gallagher, a Marine Corps veteran. The Pentagon's warning to U.S. personnel and veterans comes as senior leaders there have identified. Let's try that again. The Pentagon's warning to U.S. personnel and veterans comes as senior leaders there have identified China as the United States' pacing threat, expressing alarm over Beijing's military advancements and efforts to expand its global footprint and influence. It follows, too, a move by the U.S. government in June to blacklist dozens of companies across the world for alleged ties to the Chinese government, including several aviation training firms. Among them are Frontier Services Group, a Chinese state-owned company founded by Eric Prince, the former head of Blackwater Worldwide, and the Test Flying Academy of South Africa, which faced scrutiny after reports that it had hired Western military pilots to train Chinese aviators. Frontier Services denied in June that it has used U.S. military personnel to train Chinese pilots. It did not respond to questions from the Post about whether it had hired former service members to do so. The Test Flying Academy of South Africa said in a statement in June that it was disappointed in the decision by the U.S. Commerce Department and alleged that larger American companies also train Chinese pilots. It did not respond to requests for comment. An Air Force colonel with experience flying F-16 fighter jets said in an interview that he first received an email in 2019 seeking seasoned test pilots. His first thought, he said, was to ask his wife if she wanted to go to South Africa someday. It did not look particularly suspicious to me, he said. 2 years later, he recalled, a message came to mind when he was briefed by the Air Force of Special Investigations ahead of a professional conference and warned that such recruiting was happening. The pilot shared with the Post a second recruitment pitch that he says he received from the South African company in 2021. It sought helicopter and jet pilots for work in Far East Asia, requiring 6 years of experience as a test pilot and being familiar with teaching students whose first language is not English. They can appear very legitimate to the point that I did not catch it until I had a little bit more background knowledge. The offer said I would just say that I was kind of humbled that it basically escaped my detection for almost 2 years. Patrick Cronin, Asian Pacific Security Chair at the Hudson Institute in Washington, described such efforts as one piece of a broader initiative directed by President Xi to elevate China's standing in the world by having the ability to stand down the Americans in any scenario. There are also indications that Beijing is focusing more attention on and training of personnel on thwarting U.S. attempts to collect intelligence on the Chinese government, recruiting and compromising and understanding how our military moves through our key people and our key technologies is vital to his strategic ends, he said. Looks like that concludes the article. Big thing here is keep your eye open for anything that sounds too good to be true. High dollar amounts probably for training English as a second language, pilots or other military type roles. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude it. Just want to bring it to your awareness. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.